All right, I call to order this November 13th, 2018 meeting of the Powhatan County School Board. I'm sorry, the workshop of the Powhatan County School Board. All of the members are present this evening, along with our student liaison and Dr. Jones. And we have the draft agenda in front of us for the workshop this evening. Are there any members have any changes necessary to the draft agenda printed? Hearing no changes, is there a motion to approve the draft agenda?
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second by Mr. Kunkel. All in favor of approving the, I'm sorry, Mr. Cole, all in favor of approving the draft agenda, please respond with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Takes us to our first public comment period, or the public comment period for our workshop this evening. There's a time limit of 3 minutes per individual and 5 minutes per group with a 30-minute total time limit. Public comment period is open. We would ask that anyone wishing to address the board, please address the board as a whole and identify yourself by name. Please provide us with your address. Public comment period is open. Once again, public comment period is open. All right, seeing no movement, I'll bring public comment period to a close. Dr. Jones, I believe you have 3 presentations for us this evening.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first one is the 2018-2019 salary scale comparison report, our salary study that we do annually or have done annually for the last several years. Mr. Johns is here to go through the presentation with you and answer any questions that you may have. Mr. John?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
As Dr. Jones stated, we've done this for many, many years, and let's see if I can get this. Okay. The purpose and goal has not changed. It pretty much stays the same, but I think it's important to restate it each year since, for the public, and since this is a public document. But the purpose of this study is to provide information to the board as to how Powhatan salaries compare with our neighbors or the other school divisions in our region surrounding us, and to look at it over multiple years and see whether we're making progress or falling behind with any salary adjustments that may be made. This is just an indicator of our competitiveness with our competitors or neighbors that we may compete with as we recruit employees and retain the employees that we have. Our goal has been to be at or near the median for each salary scale and each step on those scales. This is the list of the divisions that we compare ourselves with. So there are 12 here, and and Powhatan will make 13. Our process, we first start by getting updated salary information from all of these school divisions. Now, most everybody has their salary scales posted on their website, so it's easier to get them than it used to be a few years ago, although there are still a few that we do have to contact because they are not posted. But once we get these scales, the first step in our process is to convert all of them but the teacher scale to an hourly rate so that we are comparing apples to apples, because some people have different contract lengths, different hours of the day and things like that, and the hourly rate gives us a fair comparison. And then we will do multi-year comparisons, as I stated, as well as to show on each scale what the best ranking that we had for any step, the worst ranking we have for any step, as well as the average for that particular scale. There are some variables as we look at these and try and do the comparisons each year. The first one is experience versus steps or bands on a scale. Some pay scales do have some steps that are still the same. Most divisions have been trying to adjust that, but some of them still do have some that are the same. And some of them on their pay scales, just use a minimum and a maximum range and don't really have steps. Contract days and hours worked, we're able to adjust for that by converting to hourly rates. And then another variable is steps on a scale. Some divisions have more steps on a scale than others, but what we've done is use 35 steps on the teacher scale because everybody has that, and most all the other scales we go to 30 so that we are doing a fair comparison. Some divisions will place their employees on the scale based upon years of experience, so the step equals years of experience. Some divisions will not place their employees above a certain step no matter how much experience they have. So that's another variable that we run into when you are looking at the scale and considering actual pay. There's different job titles. The scales that we compared this year, the job titles are fairly consistent, but the ones that we didn't compare, they do have different job titles. Some titles, for example, assistant superintendent in one division may only have one area of responsibility, and another it may have multiple areas. Same thing with directors and things like that. So those, that's a variable that it's hard to compare. And then also educational stipends. Some divisions have the educational stipend included in the scale, and others do not. And so that makes a difference as well. This is a list of the divisions that we ranked in this update for the board on the left, the column on the left. The column on the right are salary scales that we have not ranked. We are in the process of doing that, and so for the board's information, if as we progress through our budget process this year and it appears that there might be funding to make a salary adjustment, specifically if there is any ability to do a targeted adjustment, we will finish all these rankings and present that in one of the budget updates so that we can, if a target adjustment is approved, process that correctly based upon what the board has approved. So we're working on that, but just, did not have any of that for this presentation. This is a list of the rankings where we are today. And if you look at that top line on the teachers, you can see for this current year, our average ranking for the teacher scale is 7. The goal for the teachers is to be at 6. We were there in 16 and 17. In 17-18, we dropped down to the 8th ranking. We're moved back to 7, so that's good, but I'd really hoped that we would make it back to 6 where we were 2 years ago. This really just illustrates that this is a moving target because other school divisions, even though we targeted the teacher scale, other school divisions made adjustments to their teacher scale as well, so we did not get back to where I'd hoped that we would get to. You can see as you go down this list, there are groups that are at the 9th ranking instead of the 6th. There's some at the 7th. Our drivers, down the last one next to the bottom, we did make progress with our drivers in that we moved from 9th to 7th, but I'd hoped we would, get at 6th with the drivers as well. But we are at 7th, so we made progress, but not as much as I really hoped for us to make. If you look specifically at this next chart, it is the teacher scale. Shows 35 steps on the scale, and if you look to the far right, I've highlighted in green the steps that improved over last year. And so we had one step that went down, we had 20 that improved and 15 that did not change. And if you look where those changes were, they are the improvements, the ones that are highlighted in green, they were in an area that we were specifically targeting. So, you know, I'm glad to see that we did achieve one of the things that we were after in this year's budget. These next slides, and I won't go, you know, over all of them, but I will go over the teacher one. What this does is it shows you in a 5-year period what we've done towards the salary adjustments for the teachers. So you can see the percentage adjustments that we made, or whether we targeted, whether we did or did not make an adjustment. And you can see how many steps on the scale decreased in rank, those that increased or no change. And so you can look at any of these salary scales and see what's happened with them. So as far as, and like I said, I won't go over all of these unless there are questions on them, but as far as the summary and conclusions on this, you know, our goal is to be at 6 for teachers. We ended up at 7th ranking, and so we improved, but we didn't make it where we wanted to be. We did have good improvement on certain steps of the teacher scale. Most of them did increase. The areas that we wanted to increase, we did make improvements on those steps. But we still have a lot of scales that are ranked below the median. For example, our mechanics are ranked 11th, and some of the administrators are 9th. Driver assistants are ranked 9th. And so the staff is recommending that the board place salary adjustments as a high priority again as we go through this budget cycle this year. So if there are questions, I'll be happy to try and address those for the board.
All right, questions from the board for Mr. Jones?
I have one right
Ms.
now.
Ms. Ayers.
On the counties that we compare ourselves to, there's 12 listed, and it's ranked 13. What is the 13th?
Well, 13 includes Powhatan. So there are 12
So we include
that are
ourselves.
listed. So, right.
Okay, okay,
And so
thank
we
you.
include ourselves, yes, ma'am.
I was just curious.
Right.
All right, so other questions? Mr. Conka, did you have a question, sir?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, Mr. Johns, I'm looking at the comparisons, and I agree, I feel it should be a priority, and I understand that it's always kind of a moving target. You're always kind of playing catch-up with areas that don't correct as you see. But I'm trying to find, and I don't remember what meeting it was, we had this chart in a more preliminary form 2-3 meetings ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers, I mean, it seems like there's a big difference in the numbers, specifically in the upper salary steps. I thought we had a number of them in the preliminary chart that were 1s and 2s in the ranking, which surprised me. But when I look at this comparison chart, it's page 8. Everything is pretty much 5, 6, 7, 8. Am I
You're talking
correct
about
or
the teacher
incorrect in my
chart?
memory? Yeah, in the teacher chart, or am I not remembering this correctly from the preliminary data?
We've not been 1s and 2s on the teacher chart. It may have been, are you talking about the one where we're comparing the 2008 scale to the
Yes.
to the recent scale?
I thought we had a preliminary chart without all these adjustments that was still showing scales that were very high. And I may be wrong.
That
I think
was
it's the number of
2008, and
teachers
it was
is what
the-
you saw, not
and
our
There
rank.
were some ones on there, too.
So the rank in here, the rank was the 2007, 2008 rank that I'm looking at. Gotcha. Okay. My mistake. Yeah, I didn't expect a change that big, so.
Right. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Dole.
I appreciate Mr. John and the staff's work on this. I think it's always good data for us to look at. And you know, I think it keeps the information in front of us in terms of what we need to do. You know, we've talked about salaries on this board ever since I've been on it, and we know that it's a priority. It does help us in trying to focus a little bit where we need to. I'm still obviously concerned about some areas where we still got a lot of, even with the salary increase last year, we had a lot of steps within that salary band go down, you know, decrease in rank in areas. So this is information that certainly I will use, and I know that the staff will use as they come forward with recommendations as we move forward the budget process.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Johns, can you tell me just a little bit more about how these our 12 peers were selected in terms of why these were identified as maybe the best comparators for us on an annual basis? This is excellent data. I just want to understand better how some of them seem obvious to me, the Amelia, the Goochland, the Cumberland, Chesterfield, that they're our immediate neighbors. How did some of the other ones, were they identified?
Well, we used the Region 1 school systems, but the Region 1 divisions that were east of Richmond, we backed out of here. So these are the ones that are closest to us. And it's the same ones that we've used forever. Because, you know, I can go back and, you know, I've looked at studies from 2008, 2009, and those were the systems that we were comparing with. So for consistency, I've always continued using this group.
I think another factor, Mr. Chairman, is the size of the school division. So ones that are a little further west of us, like Fluvanna, Prince Edward, are school divisions that are similar size, and may provide some better comparison in terms of matching up staff that are in there for comparison's sake. So that's why I think you see Fluvanna and Prince Edward on there. The rest of them are either Region 1 or are direct neighbors or nearby neighbors.
Okay. I think I was thinking in terms of how we compare against Richmond City, for example, Henrico, some of those that are further, much larger than we are, and certainly east of us. Just curious how they came to be part of the list, to better understand that. Is part of that the fact that they are a competitor for us in terms of our workforce? You know, that we lose teachers to go to those school districts, perhaps not frequently, but we have in the past lost them. Therefore, they're a good comparator.
Yes, sir. And we sometimes gain employees from those larger districts as well.
Right. I think that would be the more pertinent point, is that we attract teachers from those school divisions to come to Powhatan, and I think having them as a comparison helps to make sure that we're competitive. And we've got some school divisions that are much smaller than us, and we felt like it was important to also compare on the other side of that some that are larger than us, just to have a balance.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Other questions or comments? All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. Mr. Chairman, the next presentation is College and Career Readiness Report. This is an annual report the board receives. You'll notice that it's a little different this year because it's kind of told through the lens of our new strategic plan. Dr. Alejandro and Dr. Tibbs have worked on this presentation and pulling the data to show how our students did last year. And then we've kind of, again, framed it with some our key performance indicators to kind of show how we're going to be measuring this moving forward, and also identifying the ones that we still need to collect data on as a baseline. Dr. Alejandro?
Thank you. As Dr. Jones stated, this is our annual report of college and career readiness, and I thought as we introduced the presentation tonight that it was important for us to use our new vision statement, as I think that really speaks to the fact that we are preparing our students to thrive in a global society through their college and career readiness. In speaking to the strategic plan, there are two goals that really address college and career readiness. While certainly that is woven throughout everything within the strategic plan, Goal 1 specifically talks about academic readiness, and some of those potential college pathways. And Goal 3 speaks to community engagement, which addresses some of our CTE students' needs. What I did was we pulled the key performance indicators that had been identified for those goals that were directly related to college and career readiness. So on this third slide, you'll see that there are 6 items that have check marks next to those. Those are the actual indicators that we'll look at this evening. And then the other 4 indicators are things for which we are creating baseline data so that we can use it moving forward. As we discussed when we went through the strategic plan, we will be providing a report card of sorts for you on these key performance indicators, and those are new items that we will need to get our baseline data for. So starting with the first indicator, graduation rates. There are 2 different ways that graduation rates are generally categorized at the state level. The first one is the Graduation Completion Index, and this is the one that takes each of the students and assigns them a number based on what kind of result they got at the end of their career with us here in Powhatan County. So if a student earns a diploma, they get a credit of 100 points. If they get a certificate of completion, it's 25 points. Students who earn a GED get 75 points, and students who are still enrolled with us, we do have students who are still enrolled past the 4-year date, get 70 points. So the new benchmark with the new profile of a graduate does set that at 88%, and our graduation completion index is 96.2. I don't know if you could see that when you looked at the slide, but it's 96.2%. And that is up 1.7 points from last year, and over the past 5 years, we've gone up 3.4 points. So nice to see that continue to rise, and I think that's a focus that we've had at all levels at making sure that our students are ready for full graduation requirements. The on-time graduation rate is a little bit different. That is the state report that just looks at the diplomas that are issued at the state level. So, and there has been a bit of a shift in the types of diplomas that have been offered. So the advanced, the standard, and now there is the special diploma as well as the general achievement diploma. It does not include any students who are GED students or students who are not enrolled, and our on-time graduation rate is at 93.6%. And to break down those diploma types then, we looked at each of the diplomas. Advanced Studies diploma, we had 192 students earn that, 125 students with the standard. Fewer than 10 students received an Applied Studies diploma or were dropouts, and 13 students earned a GED. Along with that, or aside from that, our dropout rate between 17 and 18, in 2017, the dropout rate was 3.52%. In 2018, it was 1.74% for a decrease of 50% over the course of the year. And over 5 years, we've had a 75% decrease in our dropout rate, going from 4.21% back in 2014 to just that 1.74 this year. So really have made great strides to make sure students have had a completion process after they go through Powhatan High School for their 4+ years. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Tibbs for CTE credentials.
Good evening. In the area of CTE, every year we try to increase our offerings and increase what we are able to provide to students. This first slide under CTE will highlight for you the CTE credentials that we offered last year. This is the first time that the board has seen this list in its entirety. We've spoke about them over the past couple of years, but I wanted to provide you with the list as it pertained to last year's student group. This year we will be looking to increase our offerings in our CTE credential area. Two of the credentials in here are state credentials, and that includes a certified nursing assistant as well as a cosmetology and nail technology license. The rest of them are credentials that do fit the graduation requirement, and oftentimes many of our students leave us with multiple credentials, not just one in one specific area. This chart outlines for the past 3 years how we have increased our offerings in terms of our class offerings in sections and in terms of our enrollment numbers. Also, the top 3 or top 4 items that you see will highlight our numbers in terms of the state licensures. 2015, we had 10 students receive a state licensure. In 2017-18, we had 12 students. Industry certifications, we increased Every year we've increased, but last year we saw a significant increase from 391 to 479 students receiving industry certification. Workplace readiness, this is the minimum bare bones credential or certification that we can offer to our CTE students. Most of our students are receiving WISE certification, financial literacy certification, and certifications in other areas and do not need to take the workplace readiness assessment. Workplace readiness competencies, there are 12 of them. They are embedded in every CTE course that we teach. There are 21 of those competencies. So every student receives the workplace readiness competencies through their coursework. It's just embedded, and we don't do an individual specific test for that because the students are taking the credential in that specific program area. The two items that I did add this year to the chart that I felt needed to be added were the total number of sections. You can see we had 140 in 2015-16 and had a dip in 16-17, but we increased that again. Last year we have 146 sections. And then the total enrollment, again, rising from year to year. So we are seeing the CTE programs grow and those areas increase. Program highlights for this upcoming year at Powhatan Middle School. One of the things we wanted to do, and we talked about this as we designed that building, as well as we were constructing it and merged together and so forth, we talked about a revamp of our technology education program. So at the middle school this year, we have Project Lead the Way in technology education. Project Lead the Way is a STEM-based curriculum, a very hands-on focused curriculum for students. And this is new to the students this year, as well as we have a new staff member that joined us this year from the science department. Powhatan High School also reorganizing technology education and bringing in engineering. Engineering program there. He's got 3 sections of engineering this year. A very hands-on program, and Mr. Benway's doing a fantastic job with that. This year we did add fire science. We have 1 section of fire science at the high school. Those students are enjoying that program. When they finish this year, they will be certified in Firefighter 1. And we did have an increase in enrollment in agriculture science in the fabrication area. We saw an increase in fabrication and metals. So we were able to offer additional sections in welding this year, as well as in fabrication. And then division-wide, collaborating with the Powhatan County Economic Development Office, bringing CTE and the community together. Roxanne Salerno is our new economic individual with the county, and she has expressed an interest based upon her conversations with business and industry partners within the community to become involved with us and to be a liaison and partner us with business and industry that we have here in our community.
The next indicator is enrollment and performance in our advanced courses. We have this each year in our course offering guide, but I'm always so impressed by the number of options that we provide our students that I included it in the presentation this year. So on the left-hand column, you'll see the advanced placement courses that we offer. We also have in the center column all of the dual enrollment. Many of those happen to be part of the ACA program, but there are opportunities for students in dual enrollment outside of the ACA program. And then, of course, our career and technical programs. The one I did not include in the career and technical is the fire science that is new this year, but Dr. Tibbs mentioned that. But again, really just some nice opportunities for our students to have a single high school within a division that has this many opportunities for students to advance is really a tremendous opportunity for our kids. Also wanted to just talk a little bit about their success in these programs and their enrollment in these programs. The AP courses, even though we did open up the ACA program, which we thought would change some of our AP enrollment over time, we actually have maintained enrollment, and that's due to some of the new offerings that we've had. So we added a computer science 2 class. We added a human geography class for non-ACA students. So we've added some AP courses, some science courses that have been of interest to non-ACA students. So the students that were getting taken away from AP courses with dual enrollment have balanced out with some of the different course offerings that we've had. With the AP tests, we had 311 students take those tests, which is about 22%, again, stayed pretty steady with what we had over the course of the last 3 years. And in the third row are the number of students in dual enrollment courses. and that's a percentage of the total. It's 4% of our total population. So that's where we are with dual enrollment. Again, as I mentioned, we had 311 students take 539 AP exams. The nice statistics in this one is that for the students, we had more than 2/3 of our students earn a 3 or higher, and almost 2/3 of our teachers were able to get students to that 3 or higher goal on those tests. So success from both the student side and from the teacher side. And then also wanted to mention the non-traditional programs that we have for our students. We have 3 regional programs that our students are involved in. We have Code RVA, Maggie Walker Governor's School, and Appomattox Regional Governor's School. We have anywhere from 4 to 8 students at each grade level attending those programs, anywhere from 2 to 4 students per grade level at each of those as well. And then, or at each of the programs rather. And then at the ACA, you'll see that our enrollment has fluctuated a touch between 24 and 28, just depending on the cohort coming in. Also wanted to talk a little bit about what our students do after high school. So each year, Dr. Massa announces this at graduation, so this is not a new statistic for many of you, but you'll see that almost 40% of our students go on to 2-year college, and then 42% of our students pursue a 4-year degree. So that is 80% of our students who are moving on to post-secondary education. 16% of our students go into the workforce, and 4% go into the military. Standardized test performance. You've seen these charts in the past as well, but this one's a little different because 2 years ago the SAT did change. So we are now no longer comparing longitudinal data from the 90s as we had in the past. So this is much more recent data, just from 17 and 18. And you can see that we are tracking right at or above Virginia and U.S. Results in both SAT math and the evidence-based reading and writing for our students, both in 17 and 18. And then reached out to a graduate who just had a little bit of information that she wanted to share about how Powhatan County prepares her for what she's doing now. She's an attendee at James Madison University. Hannah Bradshaw graduated in the class of 16, and she says, Powhatan allowed me to be a part of challenging courses as well as be active in the Powhatan community. It was a very positive environment where I learned practical skills to be successful inside and outside of the classroom. I learned how to take initiative, manage time, and use the resources available to me. Because of these tools, I have been able to prioritize academics while also giving back to and serving my university as an active student around campus. And Hannah is applying to the education program now at JMU with hopes of being a math teacher, and I told her she can come back anytime.
All right, questions or comments from the board?
If no one else will
Mr.
start, I
Keller.
will.
All right.
I've got I have a couple questions and a couple comments.
All right, floor is yours.
Back early on, where we have the diploma information, we've got a general achievement diploma, and then we have down on the following slide an applied studies diploma. Can you enlighten me as to what they are and the differences between those two?
So the General Achievement Diploma is something that the state still has on its chart as far as accounting for that diploma, but our students, the Applied Studies Diploma would have been closer to either the Modified Standard Diploma that you would have been familiar with, and so that's where that one is. They've just changed the language and some of the requirements a bit for that.
Okay, I appreciate that. And let me first say I'm very pleased with the information that we've gotten, and I'm very proud of the things that we're doing. I agree with you, Dr. Alejandro. For us to be able to offer some of the things that we offer in our division, it's pretty amazing, and I think it says a lot about the staff and a lot about the leadership. But I think some of these things are coming from the bottom up, which is always really nice when a teacher comes to you and says, hey, we'd like to offer this kind of class. So that all those things are terrific, and I really do appreciate that information. The credential information that you shared, Mr. Tibbs, Dr. Tibbs, I'm sorry, is is good information too. You know, in my position as a career coach, I get calls from employers repeated on a regular basis looking for students who would like to go to work for them. And unfortunately, I'm not able to fill a lot of those requests because most of the students who want to go to work and who are have the skills to go to work are working. So they end up pirating people from each other, I think is what's going on. So I think there is a need still for us to work with and somehow to attract students to that workplace readiness, and I'm using that in a global term, not a specific definition of that. You know, I guess one of the things that's always concerned me, and I understand the practicality of that is, but the number of students that we have on early release in their senior class. And if they're going to a job that's leading to a career, then I'm all for that. But if they're going out just working a job and not coming to school and not really furthering their education and their learning, then I've got some reservations about that. You know, I know what the flip side of that is. If you hold a student in school and you put them in a class they don't want to be in, that's another challenge. So I think we have a challenge to try to figure out how we can recapture some of those students into programs that might interest them and might at the same time help address the workplace needs in the Richmond area. So you know, I guess what I'm asking for is just to continue to look at that and to continue to look at, you know, creative ways to do that. The one piece of data that I did not see on your chart, Mr. Tibbs, is apprenticeships, and I know we have a hard time sometimes tracking that, but it's an area, once again, where I'd like to see us spend a little energy and see if there's something we can do to help steer students more into apprenticeships, because quite frankly, you know, if I had a child right now, I might steer them toward an apprenticeship because basically they get a really quality education, they get a credential, they earn while they're learning, and when they finish learning, they have no debt. It's not something I can say about everybody we sent to a four-year school. So, once again, lots of information. I'm sorry I'm kind of rambling here, but I really do think there are students out there that we are not adequately addressing their needs, and I'm not sure that anybody in the state is at this point. But nonetheless, I feel like that's an area where we could help our students and help our community.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cole. All right, so I'll make a comment about slide number 10. So I have the pleasure to serve as the board's representative on the CTE Advisory Committee. And I will tell you that I'm heartened by the information that's there, particularly if I read this correctly, that there's 2,480 participants, 2017, 2018, at the middle school and the high school in the CTE programs. And I think that that's absolutely wonderful with 146 sections. I will tell you that with the CTE Advisory Committee, you know, that committee has representation from businesses in Powhatan, businesses in surrounding counties, and the feedback that we receive, the board, that committee receives, is tremendous. I mean, these employers are looking for people with the skill sets like our students, that our students have. They're very complimentary of the programs that are being offered, and frankly, I think that they would be ready to offer employment to everyone we could produce at times, is the impression that I get. And I want to take a minute to commend that committee and also the work that our CTE programs do within our schools. That's a large number, 2,480 out of our student population. And when you look at the number of credentials earned, you look at the industry certifications, 479 industry certifications in 2017, 2018, that's very impressive. And one of the things that I hear, you know, the CTE Advisory Committee under Dr. Tibbs' leadership and the other staff that are there, Mr. Ring's staff and others, you know, they work to obtain scholarship opportunities for these students. And when the students come in and they move through a process where they competitively earn these scholarships, they talk about what the CTE programs have meant to them, what the opportunities are that they've created for them. These young men and women talk about the fact that they have jobs, ready jobs out of high school. They have ways to support themselves while they continue their education, while they go to trade school, the day that they graduate. And it's really quite an accolade for the school system that we're able to put them in that posture. So that's a large number, but again, I just wanted to take a minute to to commend the work that's done for those programs. It's very good. So, Dr. Jones, I thought I would share that with you and the staff. So,
Thank you for doing that.
sorry to take a moment of your presentation time, but I thought I would. So, other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, if I could?
Yes, sir.
I would also like to commend the entire instructional team. I think what you see in this presentation is a trend line of going up in almost every area of performance for our students. And while a lot of this data is talking about high school students, it really starts at the elementary school level with a strong foundation, and then continues on in the middle school level with increased offerings, more rigorous instruction, so that when they get to the high school, they're prepared. And I've heard Dr. Massa and several of his staff comment on numerous occasions this fall that this incoming ninth grade class is one of the best they've ever had in terms of being prepared and ready for learning, which I think is a testament to our K-8 program. So congratulations to them. I'd also like to say that the numbers that stand out to me are the ones that Mr. Walters mentioned for the CTE area, but we also, a 96% graduation completion index is, I believe, the highest that we've ever had, and a dropout rate of 1.74% is the lowest that we've ever had. So if our ultimate goal is to graduate students and have as many of them possible ready for the world of work or higher education, these numbers show that we're doing it exceptionally well. So congratulations to Dr. Alejandro and Dr. Tibbs and everybody in the schools for, I think, just doing a wonderful job.
All right, thank you, sir. If I could just ask one follow-up. So it is a little difficult to read the 96.2. That was very small, so I was a little unclear on that number. But if I go to this slide number 7, and I'm equally pleased to see the dropout number as low as it is. That's 1.74% was very impressive. Can you tell me the definition? What qualifies you as a dropout? Is it as simple as it sounds?
It is. So it's any student, at ninth grade year, when a student enters in the ninth grade, they are assigned a cohort. So students who entered the ninth grade this year are part of, the 2022 cohort. If they finish in 2022, then they have graduated. If they stop attending for 15 consecutive days and then don't return, they're considered, before 2022, they're considered a dropout. Our staff makes every effort when we have students who drop out to reach back out. We use our attendance folks to do that. We have a variety of ways to reach back out. We also have alternative education programs that we see if we can work with them for, with an ISAP program or a GED program for them. There are other programs within the high school to bridge them early on if we've got students who come in overage, because you might have someone who comes in that was designated as the class of 2022 this fall who may have been close to 16. So to try to get somebody graduated within 2 years may not be something that would be a challenge that they would be ready for or able to do. So again, we have lots of alternatives, which is what makes that index what it is, because we not only, if we can't get students across that stage, we want to make sure that we've provided them with something that is marketable for them. And oftentimes that will include something along with the GED or some of the other programs that incorporate CTE, so that they've got a certification of some sort that also would help them. So that was more of an answer than what you were asking for, but
That was
I'm
exactly
very
what I
proud
was
of what
asking for, yeah.
they do to make sure that we send students out into the work world or the academic world prepared as we can. We also, if I can mention, we just entered into an MOU with an organization called Challenge U, and they take a look at any of our students who are dropouts that are not of the age 21 yet, and they reach out to those dropouts and offer them the opportunity to earn a high school diploma, and they will go through the process with them to earn that high school diploma. They provide them with a mobile device so that they can do some online learning. It's completely separate from what we do. All we do is provide them the contact information, and then they reach out and provide the support services and wraparound services to get the students through. So even if it may not end up on one of these charts that they finished, we're doing everything that we can to make sure that our students are productive when they leave us.
If I could add,
Yes,
that's
sir.
no cost to Powhatan County. Challenge You, if they are able to bring a student back in and get them across the finish line, then they receive funding from the state. So all of their funding is money that would have been coming from the state if they were enrolled with us. So we saw it as a win-win for us.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good example of us not just resting on our laurels, but continuing to make sure that every student has the opportunity to get across the finish line.
And again, that 1.74% is the lowest dropout rate in what period of time?
Well, I just went back 5 years, but I can't imagine. I can
5
look-
years sounds good, too.
Yes.
Okay, so it's the
Yes.
lowest dropout rate in at least 5 years. That's
At
very
least,
good.
and I would venture to guess that, as Dr. Jones said, it's probably the lowest. I mean, that is a tremendously low dropout rate.
Yeah, that is.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. I'm sorry, Ms. Ayers has a
do.
question. I
I'm really
apologize,
sorry.
Ms. Ayers.
I just looked at it and I'd forgotten about it. The, how many approximately students are in the Project Lead the Way at the middle school?
We have a full course load there.
Okay.
Every section she has is utilizing Project Lead the Way. She's got 5 sections.
5 sections,
With
okay.
about 24 to 26 students.
That's perfect. That's really good news. Thank you very much.
All right, before Dr. Alejandro and Dr. Tibbs step away from the podium, are there any other questions?
Sorry about that.
No, that was my fault. I should have asked one more time. Any other questions? All right, thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members, and I think Dr. Alejandro is going to stay at the podium because she's got a quick update on the gifted plan and proposed revisions for our local gifted plan. Dr. Alejandro?
And this really is not a formal presentation, but just more information to provide to you all. Each year, we do have a time where we review our gifted plan. Last year, we presented it formally to you all for approval, and that was finally approved in January of this year. But as we go through the summer and we take some time to review the data, as well as get feedback from our Gifted Advisory Committee, we do look at revisions, and we found 2 areas where we needed revisions. And one was in a definition or a descriptor of what equitable representation looks like, to make sure that we're addressing all underrepresented groups and populations, and so that's outlined from page 7, some updates there. And then we also needed some clarity in notification procedures, and that was because we notify students who are recommended for eligibility based on whether they're recommended by school staff or whether they're recommended by parent, and wanted to make sure that we had the appropriate notification information in there. So those are the 2 updates for you all to review, and then we'll bring it back for formal approval next month.
All right, questions at this point for Dr. Alejandro, or comments? I know we'll be seeing this again, but any initial questions or comments? All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Jones. So that takes us to the appointment agenda for closed session. Do I have an individual that would be willing to read the certification? Mr. Kunkel, would you mind helping us out tonight, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, make a motion. My computer's not catching up with me.
I'm sorry, you got no notice on that, so will you take your time,
Make a
sir?
motion that we enter into closed session pursuant to Code 2.23711A1 to discuss the employment, resignation, and leave of specific employees, and pursuant to Code 2.23711A2 and A4 to discuss the expulsion and school placement of specific students. Codes 2.23711A1, A2, and A4.
All right, we have the recommendation in the form of a motion. Is there a second to Mr. Kunkel's motion?
Second.
Ms. Emel has seconded Mr. Kunkel's motion. All in favor, please respond with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are in closed session. Thank you very much.